Okay, here we go. Good morning, everybody. It is Comics Camp Week 7, LoonToons Live-Draw number 4. We're going to be drawing some loons this morning. Let's pull out some paper and pencil, and we'll get started right away with our LoonToon Live-Draw. Welcome, comics campers. Welcome all the camps that are joining us this week. As always, Comics Camp information at merrickbennett.com. You can join the Patreon to get all the updates. Super. So we have been drawing all these loons this month with the Green July program. We've drawn hatching loons. We've drawn loon families. Last week we were drawing some loons hunting for food, and the parent loons keeping the chick loons safe on their backs. This is going on right now in lakes all around New Hampshire, at least around where I am. And these parent loons diving down, chasing fish, catching them ideally for the loons and feeding them to the young and so on. So we have all these lake scenes going on in our comics. So today we're going to take a little bit of a different approach. As always, we're going to start with our pencil. Remember our pie process. We'll start with our pencil. We'll run it by a test reader and get some feedback. Then we'll ink and then we'll erase. That's always how we work our comics so we can do our best possible comics. So I'll set my inking tools aside for now. I have a piece of paper and a pencil, and you can draw along with me. Whatever you end up drawing might look pretty different from my page, but let's all start the same way. So we'll start by putting this frame around the outside edge of the page. Remember how I said we do that on every page of comics that we draw, because whether this is a standalone page or a page that we're going to put into a book or a graphic novel, even the Loons graphic novel. Wouldn't that be a great story, a great sort of life cycle of a loon? If we put this into a book, we're going to want to know where the edge of the page is so our artwork doesn't get cut off. So I'm going to trace that. You notice I'm tracing pretty lightly with my pencil. Let me darken this a little. I recommend you trace really lightly, but I want you to be able to see this on your screen. So I'm going to darken my pencil. And for the rest of this session, I'm going to pencil a little darker than I usually do. You know why I like to pencil lightly, right? Because if I decide I want to erase something, the light pencil just erases completely and it disappears. All right, so the other thing we're going to do today, rather than drawing one big picture. Oh, did you see that? I did ink that panel border in around this page, and I kept all my important artwork within that frame. And then I just erased it because I penciled it lightly. So you don't even see those pencil lines when you're done with your artwork. So this page might end up like that. But the other thing we're going to do, instead of drawing one big picture on this page, I want to divide this page up into panels, sort of like, well, just like we did for our hatching loon chick, because today we're going to draw a story in 4 steps again. So let's start with 4 steps. We'll divide the page like we did before in half, top and bottom. I'm just kind of eyeballing this. If you have a ruler, I have a ruler here. I could use that, I guess, to get a straighter line, but I kind of like my lines to look hand-drawn. Let's just make sure it's not too far off. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm going to eyeball it. If it looks right to my eye, it should look right to the reader's eye. And then let's divide the page in half, top and bottom like this. So we get 2 panels. That's not really half, is it? I'll adjust it like this. Oh, hey, look at that. Actually, let's use that. All right, so see how I have a doubled line there? If I double that line and I erase the connectors, we can use that mistake as a really cool feature. Look at that. Now we have a little space between these panels. That's kind of an advanced technique. I wasn't going to show that, but that's a cool advanced technique we can use. So if we double this line and trace along there, will we get the same effect? Yeah, we can put a space between all our panels. And the last thing we'll do is, let's see, let's divide this bottom into 2 squares also. There we go. One thing I like to do is I want my reader to read across and then come down and read across. That's usually how in English language comics we read, left to right and top to bottom. If you're worried about your reader not quite getting that, feel free to put numbers in here. I usually erase those numbers and I don't ink them by the time I'm done. So, okay, we've set up a frame around the outside. We've drawn a line down the middle, dividing it in half, top and bottom. We've divided it in half side by side. So now we have our 4 panels to draw. We can draw a 4-step story with the understanding that it might change a little as we draw. All right, so the first thing we're going to draw today, I want to introduce some threats to loons, some things that loons encounter out there in the environment that make their life a little tougher. So the first thing we're going to encounter, let's put some water in here. We'll do a lakeside scene. I'm going to add some, you know what? I'm going to move that up a little bit. This is why I always draw with pencil, because I can erase and change things. I'm going to move that water up a little bit so I have a little room to show what's in the water and what's above the water. There we go. Keep a couple water lines. That looks kind of cool to have those waves there. Maybe we want a couple lines. Like I said, it changes as we draw. And then I'll put a little, maybe a grassy or bushy lake shore in on this side, coming down to the water here. That's a little hard to see, so I'll darken it. There we go. And I can use just little lines like that to give you a sense of sort of a scratchy shore. Maybe I'll put a couple rocks here. Remember how we did rocks in our habitat? We can do round or pointy or square. Let's put sort of a jagged rock up here. I do a little texture on these rocks. Those are what the rocks sort of look like around the lakes around me, but you can improvise some other habitat if you want. Maybe a bush or two, maybe some tall lake grass, things like that. That looks like a really inviting habitat for loons, but we're going to put somebody in here. So I've been drawing people in here into my loon habitats, because people and loons sometimes share the same area or habitat. But instead of drawing realistic people, I've been doing little bean people or stick figures or whatever you feel like doing. My bean people tend to look like this. I do sort of a bean shape, and then I do like little feet coming down, maybe standing on the rocks, maybe a little face, maybe a hat. These are very simple cartoon people. They're not even really people, are they? They just represent people. Maybe we'll do a kid coming along with this one. They could be any size and shape. We'll give that kid a baseball hat, maybe running down to the shore. They're enjoying the lake. And what they're going to be doing today, let's give them a fishing pole. So we'll put a pole up like that. And we'll have to give them arms connecting. You can decide if they have straight arms, like they're holding that pole out straight, or if they have curving arms, like they're kind of relaxed and just holding it close. Maybe this arm's kind of straight there. We'll just try that. See how it looks. If it doesn't look quite right, you can try bringing it in from another angle. Ooh, I kind of like that coming in from below. Let's try that arm in from below. That looks kind of relaxed, like this fishing bean is pulling back on that rod. We'll give it a reel. All right. And then you can decide if you want your fishing line hanging down. It's going to hang down off the tip here. It's going to hang down to the water and maybe put a hook in it. That's the basic hanging line, right? If you want this bean to be casting, you can. We'll leave that hook right there, and we'll do sort of a swooshing line like that, like it's being tossed around. Oh, that's pretty active. Let's give them some motion lines on the pole there. Look at that. We have this action going on in this panel by putting this simple character in here and adding a couple action lines. That's pretty cool. Now, the other thing we're going to make sure to do, we're going to exaggerate this a little bit. We're going to put a sinker on that hook, because that's key. You don't want the hook and the line floating at the top of the water, because down in the water is where the fish are. So we'll put a couple fish in here. Just simple cartoon fish. Maybe even just dots for eyes, little round head, tail on the end, dot for an eye. There we go. And this now it looks like this little fisher bean is casting that rod around. The line's not quite getting tangled. And this heavy sinker here is going to help that hook sink. Now, here's the problem. Here's the threat. If that sinker is made out of lead, I'll show you how that could be a problem. Let's do, down in this panel, I'm thinking we'll go underwater. We'll bring this line in from the other panel. We'll put a hook in on it. There's the hook. Maybe there's a little worm on that hook. So we'll just do a little squiggle. Your worm could be long and curly or however you feel like your worm should be. And we'll put that lead sinker on there. And you know, we need to educate the reader. So let's even label that. We'll put a little, because the reader might not know what we're drawing here. So we'll put a little arrow and we'll say, let's not just label it. Let's editorialize a bit. Let's show people what we feel about that. Let's say, uh-oh, lead sinker, question mark. Like, I can't believe this fishing bean would use this, because these are outlawed in, at least here where I live in New Hampshire. Lead sinker, question mark. Like, I can't believe this. This is a threat. And here's why it's a threat. Let's see. Now, to show we're underwater, I'll have to test this out. Remember how I said we'll pencil it in, we'll test it out on a reader, and then we'll ink it? I'll test this out on a reader, but I bet they'll know we're underwater if I show a fish right next to this. So here's our fish facing that hook. We'll put the tail back this way. Maybe we'll put a couple fish in there. Boy, my pencil looks like it's sharp, but it needs a little attention. So give me a second while I gently sharpen that a little. All right. Maybe we'll put a couple fish in here. Maybe we'll give them big googly eyes so we can see which way they're looking. Oh, you know what? Let's make this one even more than just looking. Let's open up a mouth for this one. We can take a slice out of that face. Look at that. And then we can erase this line. And suddenly that fish has an open mouth, and that fish is happily ready to go for that hook. You know, we can be kind of cartoony about these fish. We can give them cartoon teeth. That kind of helps the reader see what they're thinking. Let's make sure they have some gills. Let's give them fins. That looks like deep sea fish, doesn't it? So these are lake fish. Let's give them fins that are lots of little lines like this. We'll do the same for this fish. Maybe this fish is more cautious, saying, uh-oh, I wouldn't bite on that hook. That's a hook with a worm. You're going to get caught, but this fish is just going for it. Maybe we'll put a little heart. All right, so we have a little line here. Uh-oh, lead sinker. The fishing line comes into the picture, and this fish is going for it. So we have an action here. We have a couple actions, right? Coming down to the lake shore. We read in our reading direction. We come down to the lake shore. We wiggle our rod. We put the hook into the water. Sploop. And then in our next panel, the hook comes drifting in with the sinker, with the worm on it, and the fish come in and encounter it. And one fish has a mouth open. So we have a couple actions, again, coming together here. Now in this next panel, this fish is going to get away. So we're going to draw this fish pulling on that line, and sometimes the line breaks. But you know what goes with the fish if it pulls and the line breaks? This hook and this lead sinker are going to go with the fish, because that fish, first let's draw our fish with its mouth full. Well, you know what? I'm planning this now. I'm going to draw the fish pulling this way and then swimming into this panel. Maybe, let's be adventurous here. Let's try one big panel across the bottom. Let's just give this a try. So we can erase this line, and we can change this on the fly to create a huge panel, big wide panel to show the main action of our story, which is the fish, the one that got away. So we'll put the fish right in the center. We'll put this fish, this is the fish that bit the hook, right in the center there. Maybe it's looking back and it's sort of laughing. Let's give it a smile and a mouthful, like its mouth is full of hook. Although I wouldn't really be smiling if I bit onto a hook with a worm, but I guess for a fish, it's happy it got that worm. So we can make the worm and the hook coming out of its mouth a little, and it's going to be trailing the line. And the line will go back. and there will be a break in the line. So I'm going to leave a little gap there. I want you to be able to see this. So I got to draw this from the right angle. There we go. Now let's call attention to that gap because readers might not see it. Let's give it some lines like that. Let's even give it a sound effect. Snap. So they know the line snapped. Let's even make it a little wider since that sound effect is there. And I know fishing line doesn't quite fray like this, but maybe I'll give it sort of a frayed end, sort of cartoony rope style. Snap. And maybe we'll say tug here, even though that happens a little out of order reading across. Snap, tug. And we'll do the fins on this fish. This is nice. I like how this is going. We came down to the shore, we cast the rod. See how this works? There's like a story in each panel. Even the panels have sort of a flow to them. We came down to the shore, we cast the rod, we dropped the hook in, and then we zoom in underwater here. Make sure my readers understand this is underwater. So maybe I'll put some water flowing here, some water lines. And the hook drifts in and the fish come to it. And then when the fish meet that hook, they pull it to the right. So we get the line snapping as the fish tugs. Remember, connected to this hook is that lead sinker. Now that's going to be very important because now this fish is trailing the hook and the lead sinker. Let's even put 2 sinkers on just to drive home our point, to make it more visible. Lead sinkers, I don't know, we'll see. This fishing person is using these illegal lead sinkers, and this is a threat to loons. So the lead sinkers go in there. Now we can really see them connected to the fish, pulling away, and this fish is swimming. It's swimming so fast. Let's give it some tail lines too, those spines in the fin. That's how we'll identify this fish. There we go. Some gills. This fish is pulling away, swimming so fast, and it's heading left to right. So it's with our reading direction. Zoom. Going this way, and it's heading right into, guess what it's going to meet here? Remember who goes down and hunts those fish, right? We have the parent loons who are looking for food to eat themselves and to feed their families. So we don't have room to draw an entire loon here because this fish has to fit in that loon's beak. But remember, we're zoomed in, we're up close. So let's put a loon head right here. And this loon is close on this fish. And if the fish is looking back, it's not even going to see. Let's put a beak opening up to catch that fish. We'll put the top of the beak there, the triangle, the bottom of the beak here. I'm doing the sides of the beak about the same. Oh, this one looks a little thinner, doesn't it? Let's see. About the same, very pointy, very sharp, great for grabbing fish, actually. Open wide. This is going to be, I'll just lightly black that in because when I come in with the ink, that's when I'll black it in. Open wide, and this fish is swimming right into the mouth of a loon. Let's have the neck sort of going up a little bit, right? Because this loon is like diving down right into this fish. So as the fish pulls away from the line, we're packing a lot of story in here, right? This happens in a couple seconds in our comic. It might happen over several days as this fish pulls away and then trails the line. And then the loon might catch it later in the day or something. So, I need an eye. It's going to be a big eye. And this loon, you can bet, is looking right at that fish. Now, I know this is like a cartoon googly eye. Loon eyes are actually really beautiful, really different from this. But I want you to see where it's looking. I'm going to leave that white gleam in there and darken the rest of it. There we go. That gleam really makes the character feel alive. And this will all be dark. I'm not going to spend time darkening it in now. I'll get it when I ink. I'm going to draw in, since we're so close up, I'm going to draw in that little beautiful chin strap band that loons have. It's like a little triangular band tucked under their chin on their neck, and it has some black lines running across it, making it sort of a white, not checkered, but a striped band there. And then this part of the neck will be dark. Now, maybe some water lines here as this loon swims in, y'all, and maybe a connection. The fish thinks it's getting a meal. It's so happy. I draw the little heart there. The loon is coming to get a free meal. It's so happy. I'll draw the little heart there. The question becomes, what's going to happen if this loon eats this fish and this fish is trailing these lead sinkers? You do not want to get lead inside your body. Nobody wants lead inside your body. It's very poisonous, and it can really disrupt your health. And if this loon grabs this fish and takes it up to feed to its family, we could have some major problems. Now let's take a look at how this page inks up. I'm thinking maybe I'll add in the bottom of the lake here just to give us a reference point. Any other details we need? Maybe we'll add some dragonflies. Remember, a little line, little double wing on that side, double wing on that side, a couple of black flies and other things, mosquitoes, whatever you want to add into your environment. Maybe a couple more fish here swimming the other way because they're getting away from that loon. If this fish, I drew this fish from the side, so you only see one eye. If you feel like it looks too one-eyed, you can try adding in the second eye. I notice I did a second eye for this fish. See if you think that works. If you want your fish to have two eyes, more like a person's face, that can work too, because these are cartoon fish, not very realistic fish. Maybe I need another fin there. I always look over my page and see what I want to add to it. And then let's take a few minutes actually to see how this looks when we ink. So remember, when I'm doing this at home, when I'm doing this with my family and friends, often I'll pencil a page and then I'll ask somebody to read it back to me, and then I'll ink. As they read it back to me, I'll make little notes in the margin here. Oh, X, got to change that. Check that worked. They saw it, and so on. I need some gills there. All right. Wow, so you really see here as we do this page, you can see how I do go panel by panel, but each panel, once I'm done with it, I move on to the next panel, and then often I think of something and I go back and fix it. It's like the second panel influences the first panel and we make some changes. And then the third panel influences all those and we make some more changes. And I just keep rereading and making those changes, and eventually the page feels like it's pretty full. One thing I look for too is reading direction. Remember, going left to right for English language comics, how does the story meet our eye? We come down to the lake, we drop into the lake, the hook floats, the fish come and find it, the fish turn and they swim into the loon. So it all seems to flow fairly nicely left to right. If you ever encounter a panel that clunks and that doesn't read quite the same as the other panels, try switching the direction of the action. You may find that really helps. All right, so if I'm ready to ink, we'll take a couple minutes just to ink. Let's ink one panel and see how it goes. And then I'll turn you loose to ink your own pages there. So let's see. Once I'm done with the page, once I've got some feedback on it, then I'm probably ready to ink. So I'll come in with my inking tools, and I'm making a decision to use my marker on this panel border. I think I want a nice thick panel border. Then I'll set my marker aside because this marker is just too thick for doing all these details. That's where I'll use a pen. Sometimes I use a pen for that panel border. Sometimes, like maybe in this panel, I won't even ink the panel border at all. Let's see. So we'll go in here and we'll do our characters and we'll do the setting. Remember, I'm doing these little bean people partly because I want to keep it really simple. And also I don't want the reader looking at the people and saying, oh, that looks like me or that doesn't look like me. I want them just saying, oh, those are people. And these bean people are so simple and they don't really look like anybody I know, right? Big round circle. And they can be any shape and size. They can be long and thin, wide and round. They can be square, any kind of bean shape or blob shape. As long as the reader recognizes them just as a character. I'm going to add a little worm to that hook. And I made those sinkers dark. Lead is actually kind of silvery and shiny, but I made them dark so they really stand out. Hopefully and the reader can see them. And remember, we're also using our text in the next panel. We're going to call attention to those lead sinkers and point them out so the reader can't help but notice them and know that that is now, maybe a problem. And then, this story isn't over. I'm going to draw another page after this to show what the real problem is, because I don't think that loon's going to be very healthy if it eats that fish. We might have a real problem here. There will be a happy ending, I think, towards the end. I'll make sure of that. But this particular loon might find out why you don't want to eat lead. And these fishing people, I think, these fishing beans, will also find out why we don't want to use any lead in our fishing gear. There are alternatives. And lead is illegal, as far as I know, here in the state of New Hampshire. And for more on that, actually, for more about that, I'm going to flash this several times here as we do our loon draws, our LoonToon draws. Loon.org has some amazing information on threats to loons. It's not just lead sinkers that are threats to loons. There's lots of human activity and predators and things like that. And the thing that they say is that a loon can live for 30 years. We've had some loons live for 30 years. And during that time, they can raise young loons, but they only can raise, really, what do we have here in our family? They really can only raise one, at the most 2 loons per year. So that's a very slow rate of family growth and population growth. And they have to be living their full life cycle in order to keep enough loons in the environment, right? To grow enough baby loons. They have to be living that full 20, 30 years that they would have lived normally. And it's a shocking number of loons, the number of documented loon deaths before they outlawed lead fishing gear. And even now, even when it's outlawed, it's a shocking number of documented deaths that are due to lead fishing gear and other lead objects. So this is something that if we get the word out about these lead sinkers and other lead gear and other lead objects, and if we can keep those out of the waterways, we really improve the health of fish and of loons and of all sorts of other creatures in the environment, ourselves included, because people are also susceptible to lead poisoning if you get it in your body, which you don't want to do. So what did I say? Maybe let's try not, I know I said we just pencil one panel, but I get penciling and we just ink one panel, but I get inking, and it's pretty fun to ink with you. Maybe let's try this one. And like I said, maybe I think that worm needs to be a little thicker. Otherwise, it looks too much like the hook. So we'll make some changes as we ink. There we go. Nice fat night crawler there, wiggling around on the hook. So maybe we won't do the panel border on this panel, and we'll see how that looks. So here are our sinkers. We'll darken those in so they jump off the page and we can see them easily. You notice I'm not inking the numbers. I don't think readers are going to need the numbers. I think they'll read left to right and top to bottom if I do my work. And that's where showing the actions going left to right also really helps the reader. The fact that they're casting this way drops you off right here, and you're more likely to pick up this line and flow into this panel. So the artwork moving left to right keeps the reader reading. It actually helps make sure that they get the whole story, because it kind of pushes them from one panel to the next, or draws them from one panel to the next. Let's get that heart there. This is so fun to go back over your pencils and kind of learn how you drew this character and decide if you want to make any changes at all. That fish looks really hungry there, coming towards that wiggling worm. Let's try the marker for this. Oh, that's nice and bold. I like that. Uh-oh. And maybe I can make this wording a little, I'm writing really big here because I want my readers to see this. I don't want them to miss this, but I think I can tighten it up a little bit. Lead sinkers? It's not the fact that they're sinkers. It's the fact that they're lead. I can't believe it, question mark. That's like the artist thinking. Or you know what? We could also have this fish saying it. Maybe this fish can't believe it because this fish knows the laws. Those are illegal. Let's see. However you want to do this scene, however you want to run this scene, you can have your fish talking, educating the fishing beans. You can have the fishing beans educating each other. I'm going to add a little tail on there because otherwise, if I don't do that panel border, that fish is going to look like it's missing its tail. Okay, so how does this look? I'll add some water lines here, some turbulence. I'm thinking, I feel like it's kind of hanging out there in the page like this. It almost feels like it needs some, oh, you know what we could try? I think it does need a panel border, so we will have to ink this. But what if the panel border was kind of watery and wavy? Maybe that would clue the reader in that we're underwater here. Ooh, I like that. Maybe the place to leave the panel border off is this first panel and not have any border above them. I could always white that out, or in the next page, I could leave it off when we're out of the water. Let's try this with a thin line. Wavy line. And then when I test it out on a reader, I'll say, can you tell where we are? And if they see the fish and the wavy line and they say, I think we're underwater here, that's all I need to know. That makes that panel look really different, doesn't it? Ooh, I like that. It kind of ties it in with the water here, helps me see it. Couple more lines here. All right. And that means I'm going to make a note to myself when I ink down here, I'm going to put a little wavy border on there. And that's how you'll know. I just came up with a new sort of a visual language here. And when I do the wavy border, that means we're underwater. When we do a straight border or no border, that means we're above water. Very cool. I like how that looks. I notice I'm using the thin line too, because the thick line seems a little heavy. But if I want the thick line, I could always trace back over this with my marker. If I decide the thick line's better. Sometimes you come back to a page the next day and you see that a way to make it better. Boy, I said we'd just ink one panel, but I kind of want to see this through. So let's see. Let's see if we can get these details down. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's quite a snap. Oh, it's much easier to see once it's inked. Maybe I'll add the teeth on there. The worm coming out this way. You know what I think I'll do? We definitely want those sinkers nice and heavy and black, so you see them outlined against the fish. I think I'll leave a little gap between the fish's lines and the fish line. And we gave that fish 2 eyes. So if I leave a little tiny gap there and there where the line passes in front of the fish, that might be a little hard to see. Little tiny gap there. Sometimes that can help differentiate the fish line from the lines of the fish's body. And just experiment with that and see how it goes. All right, I'll move those those gills down so they don't intersect that line. And we'll say, maybe I'll move the tug over here. Tug. There we go. I want these lines to be a little wavier and lighter than that fishing line. Okay. Here are the little fish swimming away. I can add any other details I want in here. You know, lake grass, underwater bushes. I don't want them to look too much like the bushes up here, though, so I'll be careful not to add too many things like that. Sandy bottom to this lake. Dot, dot, dot. If I have time, I'll add more dots here. Let's get that loon in there. That is the main thing. That is the visual punchline to this story. the thing that makes you say, oh, good, the loon is going to get breakfast. Oh, wait, uh-oh. What does this mean if the loon ends up eating these lead sinkers? I'm going to switch over to my marker here because I know this loon is going to be very dark colored. And I think I can best color that in with this marker. These loons have nice, beautiful black plumage. Black beaks, their eyes can be very, actually kind of reddish. Let's see. Everything except the eye and the neck band, basically, is going to be a heavy black watertight plumage here. Black beak. Sometimes if you have a big black area and you're going to scan this in to do a digital image, sometimes you use the paint bucket to fill that in, but I want this page to look finished when I am done inking. So I'm going to fill it in with this marker. Oh, that's striking. Wow, when you look at this page now, we really have two predators coming in, one from the upper left, we have the fishing beans coming in looking for fish, and from the lower right, we have the loon zooming in, grabbing a fish. These fish are surrounded by dangers. Sometimes you get drawing this and you set out looking out for the loons and you end up feeling bad for the fish and you want to follow these different characters. I encourage people to follow those characters. Let them speak in your comics. Go learn about them, right? The local fish and game department often has information about these different species. This could be a yellow perch or a sunfish if I drew it a little differently. And this loon could be swooping in to gulp, swallow it up. But now we have this problem. We have these lead sinkers added in. And that's going to lead us on to our next page, but we don't have time to do that now. So I'm going to turn you loose to do your next page if you want to continue this story, or if you want to go find out more about different threats to loons and try your own story that shows how a loon encounters a threat, how the threat comes into the habitat of the loon, how they encounter it, what it does to them. You can break up your pages this way, keep it simple, and see if you can get your test readers, when you test it out on somebody as you're penciling and inking, test it out and see if you can get your test readers to tell you your story back. It's a really fun exercise. It doesn't always work. And sometimes you have to go literally back to the drawing board and redesign a couple panels so that the readers understand it. But the key is don't tell your readers what you want them to see. Just ask them what they see and listen closely to it. And you may find some surprises. You may find you really get the word out about threats to different animals and different parts of the environment. Make sure you sign your work. I'll sign this down here. Merrick. Today is the 22nd of July. There we go. And I'll put my website maybe down here and I'll post this. We'll have this posted over on the Patreon, and more activities are coming up on the Comics Camp Clubhouse there. Welcome to all our campers in our different camp groups. Great to be drawing with you this week. And thank you very much to patrons of the Patreon for helping make this all possible. I'm going to go last step, erase all my pencil lines, then I'll scan this in and post it. And you can head on over to, remember, loon.org has an amazing list of different threats to loons. You'll learn a lot about the environment. And you'll come up with some story ideas, I guarantee. Pick one of these threats that is most interesting to you and see if you can tell a 3 or 4 panel story about it. Wonderful to draw with you all today. Boy, we got more done than I thought we would. We got a whole page penciled, inked, and soon erased. So I'll draw with you again soon. Talk to you later. Good luck with your comics, everybody. Keep on drawing. Never stop telling those stories, drawing those stories. And I look forward to seeing your comics. See you later, folks. See you again soon. Friday live draw coming up and library events coming up too. All right.